If you were on a journey and had no idea what you were doing and a homeless looking guy came up and offered to help, would you do it? That's the decision that Frodo and the other hobbits had to make when approached by Strider. Without remembering forward to the rest of the book, do you think you would have made the same decision? Hello everybody, welcome to Auda and Tulva, where we're walking our way through Tolkien's Legendarium, one chapter at a time. Today we're talking about chapter 10 in The Lord of the Rings, Strider. Let's dive in. At the end of the last chapter, the hobbits are leaving the common room and going back to their parlor. This is, of course, after Frodo had the slightly disturbing conversation with Strider. They arrive only to find Strider had come with them. He offers them some advice for a reward being added to the party. Now, after their conversation in the common room, you have to think this is kind of a little weird. Strider pushed Frodo to get his friends to stop talking and almost even seemed to get angry with Frodo after his cow jumped over the moon debacle. So why would he want to travel with them? Well, we don't know yet, so let's keep moving forward. We find out Strider was hiding in the bushes at the side of the road and overheard their conversation and, more importantly, heard Frodo say, "Please remember," said one of them, "that the name Baggins must not be mentioned. I am Mr. Underhill, if any name must be given." So he was sneaking and eavesdropping, not exactly a point in his favor. Not to mention, he says he was keeping an eye out for a Baggins because he was carrying something important to him and his friends. At this point, I'm starting to really not trust it. Why does this ranger know so much? And then he mentions black riders passing through Bree. Now, if I were a cynical person, which I have a habit of being, and I were in Frodo's shoes, while I would desperately want to trust this man to help me, as he probably, knows so much more than I do, I would just be suspicious that he's trying to rile me up and get me afraid, so I bring him along. What, so he could lead me right to the black riders? What better way to motivate somebody than fear? But as we go along, he starts saying things and acting in ways that would make me start to trust him. As Frodo begins to doubt poor old Barliman, Strider jumps in. "No, I don't think any harm of old Butterbur. Only he does not altogether like mysterious vagabonds of my sort." Frodo gave him a puzzled look. "Well, I have a rather rascally look, have I not?" said Strider with a curl of his lip and a queer gleam in his eye. I read that curl of his lip as something of a little, disdainful, but what about the gleam? Is it a dangerous gleam, like he's about to attack, or is he trying to make light of the way he looks? And I do wonder if he's laughing inside at a joke he's played on everybody. We see in a page or two that Frodo notices his voice change. "You begin to talk to me like the Bree folk, but your voice has changed." Is that the joke he plays on everyone? He changes his accent to talk like the Breelanders, but then he just lets his guard down. It's something else entirely. And I wonder, what if it changed to what Tolkien doesn't quite give us that information here? I like to think something more lordly, kind of obvious, but with an air of elvishness to it, knowing what we know of Strider. Have you made up your mind yet? Are you going to trust Strider and take him along with you? Based on the evidence and only the evidence we have so far in this chapter, I want you to let me know in the comments if you trust Strider or not at this point. Now, moving on, just before we learn Strider is a master at accents, he gives us a glimpse of his hidden knowledge in two different ways. First is extremely subtle, and it's hard to pick up if this is your first time reading through the book. Strider is talking about Frodo's performance in the common room when Frodo interjects. "It was sheer accident," interrupted Frodo. "I wonder," said Strider. "Accident then. That accident has made your position dangerous." Why does Strider phrase it like that? Well, let's take a look back at what we know about the ring. We know it plays on people's desires, so maybe Frodo was wishing to disappear instead of dancing on a table. Or what about the fact that every time black riders were near, Frodo's hand started moving towards the ring? We already know black riders had passed through Bree, so it stands to reason they might not be that far away. So here we can see that his knowledge might be quite a bit more than we initially expected. The second way he shows his knowledge is when he's giving his pitch for why he should join them. An account of your performance would be very interesting to certain people. After that, they would hardly need to be told your real name. It seems to me only too likely that they will hear of it before this night is over. Is that enough? You can do as you like about my reward, take me as a guide or not, but I may say that I know all the lands between the Shire and the Misty Mountains, for I've wandered over them for many years. I'm older than I look. I might prove useful. You will have to leave the open road after tonight, for the horsemen will watch it night and day. You may escape from Bree and be allowed to go forward while the sun is up, but you won't go far. They will come on you in the wild, in some dark place where there is no help. Do you wish them to find you? They are terrible." The hobbits looked at him and saw with surprise that his face was drawn, as if with pain, and his hands clenched the arms of his chair. The room was very quiet and still, and the light seemed to have grown dim. For a while, he sat with unseeing eyes as if walking in distant memory or listening to sounds in the night far away. With Strider looking so pained and even almost scared, you have to wonder if he knows about these black riders, things that we don't. Looking into the Tale of Years and forward into the Council of Elrond, we know Strider went looking for Gollum near Mordor and captured him down that direction as well. Did he travel into the Morgul Vale, or like near Minas Morgul? Or is he remembering just 7 days ago the Black Riders rode down some of his kin as they came into the area? Unfinished Tales tells us that on September 22nd, the Dunedain blocked the road for the Black Riders, but the Black Riders proved too much for them. Only 7 days ago, he lost what would probably be some very close friends, warriors that he himself ordered to guard the Shire. Maybe we start to see his pain better here, but Frodo and the other hobbits don't know his whole story. They just see him in pain and really have to wonder why. But we soon get interrupted by Butterbur just, doing Butterbur things. There's not much to say about Butterbur at this point except for noting how bad he is at remembering things. Here we are on September 29th, and Butterbur was given a note by Gandalf on Mid-Year's Day. That's the day between June and July in the Shire calendar. So we're talking almost 3 months, 90 days since he was given the letter. And the only reason he remembered is because Frodo just happened to walk right into his freaking inn. But it's fine. No harm, no foul and all that. Oh, and we do learn one other thing about Butterbur. He does not trust Strider nor the other rangers. I guess they don't spend enough time and coin at his inn. But at least he has the decency to be frightened when Strider mentions Mordor, right? Well, despite Butterbur's misgivings, he gives the letter to Frodo to open, which apparently gives us some great information on Strider and hopefully gets us closer to our decision of, do we trust him or not? Here is Gandalf's letter. The Prancing Pony, Bree, Mid-Year's Day, Shire Year 1418. Dear Frodo, bad news has reached me here. I must go off at once. You had better leave Bag End soon and get out of the Shire before the end of July at latest. I will return as soon as I can and I will follow you if I find that you are gone. Leave a message for me here. If you pass through Bree, you can trust the landlord, Butterbur. You may meet a friend of mine on the road, a man, lean, dark, tall, by some called Strider. He knows our business and will help you. Make for Rivendell. There I hope we may meet again. If I do not come, Elrond will advise you. Yours in haste, Gandalf. P.S. Do not use it again. Not for any reason whatever. Do not travel by night. P.P.S. Make sure that it is the real Strider. There are many strange men on the roads. His true name is Aragorn. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. PPPS. I hope Butterbur sends this promptly. A worthy man, but his memory is like a lumber room. Thing wanted, always buried. If he forgets, I shall roast him. Farewell. Of course, we'll talk about the poem in just a second because I'm beginning to love poetry, though I'm still not very good at dissecting it completely. But let's look at the rest of the letter to see what we can see, as it were. So Gandalf is in a great hurry. He says he's hoping to be back in a month. Let's think about that for a second. We know from cheating and having read the books before that Gandalf meets Radagast and decides he needs to go to Isengard. That's here. The Shire is here. Not exactly close. He does seem to be riding, but that is really far to go there and back in 4 weeks. Okay, we can trust Butterbur, that's good. And a guy named Strider is good too. Sweet, don't travel by night or use the ring. Whoopsies on both accounts. And wait, there are strange men on the roads who might pretend to be Strider? Crap. At least we know his real name now. You can definitely ask him once we finish reading these many postscripts. Oh, and Gandalf hopes Butterbur doesn't forget to send the letter. Another whoops. But I know that you're all waiting for the poem. As usual, I'll link Corey's talk about it below if you need a deeper dive. Now, we know the iambic feel from the Hobbit poems, the trochaic feel from Tom Bombadil. This is called anapest. It's a triplet feel, which was often used apparently by Dr. Seuss. It's bum bum bum, bum bum bum, bum bum bum. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. 3 beats in a line, each line paired with another to form a couplet. Each couplet divided by either a semicolon or a period in this situation. Now the lines are amazingly beautiful and all point directly to Aragorn. The poem could be divided into 2 parts. The first 2 couplets and the second 2 couplets. The first 2 are talking about hidden value and resiliency. Of course, talking about Aragorn. Gold doesn't have to, to glitter to be gold and valuable and have the properties of gold. Just because someone is in the Wilderlands doesn't mean they don't know where they are. They may know exactly where they are. It's the weak things that wither away because they aren't resilient enough. When your lineage is long enough, even though it's not currently flourishing, there will come a time when the roots spring forth a sapling again. The second pair of couplets are all about what's coming in the future. Fire will be stoked from the hidden coal in the ashes. Light will come from shadows. The broken blade will be reforged. And as we know what's going on here, the last line takes us right back to the first pair of couplets, saying this person who these lines are referring to, he's going to get crowned king. So So spoilers, I guess. I love this poem. Not only is it in rhythm that just gallops along and really hardly used in The Lord of the Rings, but the meaning behind the lines is great. Not to mention the rhyming scheme. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. Glitter lost, wither frost, woken spring, broken king. It's beautiful. Now, I would be pretty inclined to trust Strider after all this. Maybe give him one more test and ask his true name, since Gandalf put it in his letter. But what does Strider do? When Frodo asks why he didn't just say he was a friend of Gandalf's, he basically says, well, I couldn't tell you everything because, worried about Sauron, apparently used the hobbits to try and trap him. Well, that's a point against him, in my opinion. I mean, if he can't be honest with some hobbits that clearly need his help, he wouldn't be able to do anything to stop him anyway. Which brings me to our last interaction that could really tell us whether or not we should trust Strider. That you are a stout fellow, answered Strider, but I am afraid my only answer to you, Sam Gamgee, is this. If I had killed the real Strider, I could kill you, and I should have killed you already without so much talk. If I was after the ring, I could have it. Now. He stood up and seemed suddenly to grow taller. In his eyes gleamed a light, keen and commanding. Throwing back his cloak, he laid his hand on the hilt of a sword that had hung concealed by his side. They did not dare to move. Sam sat wide-mouthed, staring at him dumbly. But I'm the real Strider, fortunately, he said, looking down at them with his face softened by a sudden smile. I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn. And if by life or death I can save you, I will. Now at this point, I would probably trust him. He could have killed that more, taken the ring away so many times by the end of this conversation. But instead he pledges his life to them and finally uses his true name that Gandalf mentioned in the letter. Now, before we give our final pronouncement, if we trust Strider or not fully, surprise, we have to address the elephant in the room. Merry barging into the room having seen Black Riders in Bree. And when they find out Merry followed said Black Rider, Strider looked at Merry with wonder. You have a stout heart, he said, but it was foolish. I don't know, said Merry, neither brave nor silly, I think. I could hardly help myself. I seemed to be drawn somehow. Anyway, I went and suddenly I heard voices by the hedge. One was muttering and the other was whispering or hissing. I couldn't hear a word that was said. I did not creep any closer because I began to tremble all over. Then I felt terrified and I turned back. I was just going to bolt home when something came behind me and I fell over. And here we have the first incidence of black breath. Turns out Nob found Merry with a black shape bending over him and, in my mind, searching for the ring. He just falls over and he says he felt like he'd fallen into deep water. Clearly a pretty interesting power of the Black Riders. We'll have to keep an eye on in the future, hint, hint. So after all this information, would you trust Strider? I mean, after all this, I totally trust him. And I think Tolkien had to make it a decision that we would all take. Maybe risky, but still the logical choice. I mean, he gave us spoilers in the prologue after all. He wasn't writing like, Robert Jordan, where you have to guess every person if they're a dark friend or not. Side note, if you haven't read Wheel of Time and think you can handle 14-bit books, check it out, it's awesome. But that's all for chapter 10. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know in the comments if you think I missed some evidence for either the side of should Frodo trust Strider debate. Until next time, out into Tulava, day shall come again.